You ever just know something ain't right? Deep in your gut? Like a wrench sitting crooked in the toolbox, or a truck that don't sound quite right even though it's running. That's how it started for me. My name's Bill Carson. I'm a mechanic, born and raised in a little town outside Macon, Georgia. I live in the house my daddy built with his own two hands. Ain't nothing fancy, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, metal roof, but it's solid, and it's mine. I've been married to Jenna 12 years. We met in high school. She used to bring me sandwiches in the shop class bay, hair tied up in a ponytail, smelling like vanilla and sunshine. I thought I hit the jackpot, and for a while, it felt like I had. Then, 6 months ago, things started changing. At first, it was small. Jenna had always worked admin at a real estate attorney's office downtown. You know the kind, marble floors, folks talking like every word costs money. But lately, she started taking more work trips. Atlanta, Nashville, even one to Tampa. Said they were training seminars. I didn't ask too many questions. I trusted her. But when she came home from one of those trips with a brand new leather handbag, real soft, the kind you see behind glass at Macy's, I raised an eyebrow. I asked where it came from. She smiled, said her boss gifted it as a bonus. Told me I should be proud she was moving up. Sounded a little too convenient, but I let it go. Then came the clothes. New dresses. Fancy shoes she never wore before. Even started getting her nails done all the time, red polish, shiny as a stoplight. She said she was just treating herself more, told me I was being silly when I asked how we could afford it. Now, I ain't no financial genius, but I manage the house bills. Always have. I keep receipts. Got a little black notebook with every due date and check number, same way my daddy did it. One night, I logged into the gas account, like I do the first Monday of every month. Except I couldn't get in. Said the email on file didn't match. Thought maybe I made a typo. Tried the power company next. Same problem. Finally, I called customer service. After 15 minutes on hold and talking to a robot voice, the lady on the line says all the bills had been changed to a different email, hers. Without saying a word to me. I asked if anything was past due. She hesitated, then told me the gas bill was flagged for pending collection. My jaw damn near hit the floor. I confronted Jenna that night, calm but firm. She was making dinner chicken and rice, her go-to when she's trying to act normal. I laid the printouts on the table. She looked at them, blinked real slow, then laughed and said I was overreacting. Claimed she just forgot to mention switching the email. Said she was trying to streamline things. I didn't buy it. Not for a second. Jenna never cared about streamlining a damn thing in her life. That night, I couldn't sleep. Laying there next to her, I stared at the ceiling fan, listening to it were like a dying motor. I thought back on the last few months. She wasn't touching me as much. Not talking about her day. Always texting, but the phone was face down on the nightstand. Hell, even her perfume had changed. Used to be light and sweet. Now it was some kind of musky thing I'd never smelled before. Next day, I took a personal day from work. Told Jimmy I had a headache. Drove straight to her office around lunchtime. Parked across the street in the shade and watched. She didn't come out alone. She came out with a man. Older than me, sharp suit, gold watch. Didn't look like no real estate lawyer to me. They laughed about something, her hand resting on his arm like it belonged there. I didn't confront her. I just sat there, watching through the cracked window of my truck, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight. Later that week, I started digging. Nothing drastic, just checking mail, looking at bank statements. Noticed a charge at a hotel in Savannah. 2 nights. Room service. Under her name. She told me she'd been visiting her cousin. I knew better. But the worst part? It wasn't the lying. It was how easy it came to her. How she looked me straight in the eye and smiled like nothing was wrong. Like I was the one imagining things. That's when I knew. Something wasn't just off. It was broken. And I wasn't sure it could be fixed. I didn't throw a fit or toss my wedding ring in the trash like some TV drama. That's not me. I'm Bill Carson. I fix busted transmissions, rebuild engines, and keep things running smooth. So I did what I know how to do. I started looking for the problem the way I would with any truck that's misfiring. Quiet. Careful. One bolt at a time. First thing I did was make a new email. Nothing fancy, just a Gmail with a fake name, Walter Fenton. Sounded plain enough. I wrote a message to the law office Jenna worked at, saying I needed help dealing with a tenant who skipped rent and left the house trashed. I kept it vague on purpose, made it sound like I was just some frustrated landlord needing paperwork drawn up. About a day later, I got a reply. Thing is, it wasn't from the boss Jenna had mentioned. This guy's name was different. I even Googled the name she'd said, Mark Templeton. There was a guy by that name, all right, but he was based out in Augusta and hadn't worked real estate law in years. The email I got back? That one came from someone named Dean Hartzell. He was real, too. Turns out he was a lawyer, and the office address matched Jenna's work location. So then the question hit me like a hammer. Why'd Jenna lie about her boss's name? That's when I knew I had to stop pretending things were normal. I pulled out the last 4 months of our credit card statements and sat at the kitchen table, highlighter in hand. And I tell you what, I wish I hadn't. Right there, in black and white, was a string of charges to the Cedar View Inn. Same hotel, same 2-hour window, always between 2 and 5 p.m. every other Thursday. Right in the middle of the day, while I was working and thinking she was filing papers or answering phones, lunch at a cafe 1 block away. Then the hotel. Every single time, it felt like a bad movie. I kept telling myself maybe there was some innocent reason, but come on. I ain't a fool. Next thing I did was start looking around the house. Not like tearing it up, just paying attention. Jenna kept a vanity in our bedroom, one of those old-fashioned ones with a mirror and drawers where she did her makeup. I never touched it. But that day, I opened it real slow. Everything looked normal at first. Lipstick, foundation, a pair of earrings she hadn't worn in years. But one drawer didn't open all the way. Felt stuck. So I shined my flashlight in, and there it was, a burner phone, black as night, taped to the underside of the drawer with thick double-sided tape. My mouth went dry. I didn't touch it at first. Just stared. Like it was some kind of poisonous snake coiled up in our home. Eventually, I peeled it off and turned it on. No passcode. Either she was lazy or real confident. Either way, what I saw on that screen made my hands shake. There were only a few contacts, all saved under initials. DH was one. LS, another. Messages went back months. Not a lot of them, she must have deleted most, but enough to tell me she'd been living a second life. Talking about meeting at the usual spot. Can't wait until Thursday, and I'll bring what you like this time. That's when it hit me. I wasn't living with Jenna anymore. I was living with some version of her that had broken away and kept walking. Long after I stopped paying attention, I set the phone down, walked outside, and sat on the porch swing. It was late afternoon, sun getting low. Our dog Copper came and laid his head on my boot like he knew something was wrong. Maybe he did. Dogs pick up on things we don't. I just sat there, thinking about all the times she said she had to stay late. All the nights I ate dinner alone, reheating meatloaf or watching old Braves games with nobody beside me. All the little lies I swallowed without chewing. And the weirdest part? I didn't feel angry yet. I felt hollow, like someone had scooped the insides out of me with a shovel. That night, I didn't say a word. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. If she was gonna lie, I wanted to see how far she'd go. What else she'd try to hide. Because now I wasn't just her husband. I was the man watching the engine tick, listening for every rattle and knock. And I was just getting started. You ever pull a thread on an old flannel and realize the whole sleeve's coming loose? That's where I was. Thought I was just dealing with a cheating wife. But turns out, that was only the surface rust. What lay underneath? That was the real or OT. It started with Ray. Now, Ray's one of them quiet fellas who knows his way around a keyboard better than he does a conversation. Little twitchy, talks too fast, always has ink smudges on his fingertips for some reason. We go way back. He helped me wire up some old cameras in the garage after a string of tool thefts in our neighborhood. I never forgot that. And he owed me one more favor. I called him up, told him I had questions about Jenna's office. He hesitated, said he didn't want to get in trouble. I told him I wasn't looking to ruin anybody, just trying to get the truth before I lost my damn mind. That's when he told me to meet him at this out-of-the-way diner, the kind where the waitresses still call you Hon, and refill your coffee without asking. We sat in a booth near the back. He had a manila folder with him, already smudged with fingerprints. Didn't even wait for small talk, just opened it up and started laying it all out. You know, I used to help Jenna's firm with IT stuff, right? He said, looking around like someone was listening. Firewall updates, VPN monitoring, security patches, that kind of thing. I nodded. My stomach was already tight. Well, he went on, lowering his voice, I had access to their internal billing logs. I didn't mean to snoop, but I noticed some weird stuff. Escrow transfers that didn't match up with any known closing documents. Tiny withdrawals, 500 here, 1,200 there. Real small, just enough to not raise a red flag if you ain't looking close. He paused and sipped his coffee. At first, I thought it was a bug. Some accounting software glitch. So I checked the logs. Guess whose login credentials made the transfers? I knew before he even said it. Jenna, he confirmed. But here's the twist, it wasn't her boss directing it. In fact, her boss's name only showed up on a couple reports, and the signature? It was a scanned copy. Same one used every time. That's when I leaned in. You saying she forged it? Ray nodded, eyes darting. I'd bet my truck on it. She scanned his signature and used it to approve fake closings. Then she created shell client accounts. All fake. And this is where it gets real twisted. He pulled out a printout, highlighted names, routing numbers, account IDs. I squinted, and my heart thudded like a dropped wrench. Earl Carson, I read aloud. My uncle. Dead 6 years. She used my uncle's name? And another, Ray said, flipping to the next page. Rebecca Callahan. That name ring a bell? My grandmother, I said quietly. Passed away when I was 17. Ray just nodded, slow and sad. She used names tied to your family. Probably knew you wouldn't be looking into it. It hit me all at once. The little jokes she'd made about me being too old school to use online banking. How she always said she'd handle the bills to save me time. I thought it was love. Thought it was trust. It was strategy. I looked down at the printouts. Routing numbers bounced funds between those fake names and what Ray said were buffer accounts. Places she'd used to hold the money for a few days before sending it off somewhere else, probably under yet another fake name, or maybe even her new boyfriend's. That's why she changed the billing emails, I muttered. She didn't just want to keep me out of the loop. She was hiding paper trails. Ray nodded. Exactly. If you hadn't caught that gas bill thing, you might still be in the dark. I sat back in the booth. The waitress came by, refilled my coffee, and I barely noticed. Ray slid the folder across the table. You didn't get this from me, he said. But if you're smart, you'll start looking at this like a map. 'Cause it leads somewhere. We parted ways, and I drove home in silence. Radio off. Windows cracked just enough to let the breeze in. My house stood quiet on the corner lot, same as always. But it felt different. Felt like a place I didn't know anymore. That night, while Jenna was out running errands, I spread out those papers on the workbench in the garage. I stared at my uncle's name printed under a false client ledger. The kind of thing she probably thought no one would ever notice. It made me sick. I was a simple man. Still am. I don't go looking for trouble. But now I wasn't just dealing with betrayal. I was staring down fraud. Theft. And worst of all, she dragged my family names into it. That's when I stopped thinking of Jenna as my wife and started thinking of her as a criminal. So I decided to catch her red-handed. That Thursday, Jenna kissed me goodbye around 7:15 a.m., said she had a late day at work, something about quarterly filings or budget reviews. She smiled, grabbed her keys, and told me not to wait up. I nodded like always, pretending I didn't already know she was full of it. Around 4, I loaded up my old Silverado and made my way across town, keeping a few blocks behind her. She had no reason to suspect anything. I'd been playing dumb for weeks, fixing the fence, mowing the yard, acting like life was as normal as Sunday morning pancakes. But my eyes were open now. I watched her car take a left on Peachtree Drive. It didn't head anywhere near the office building she'd worked in for over a decade. Nope. She passed right by the exit and rolled straight into the parking lot of the Cedarview Inn. That same hotel from all those charges on our statements. Low brick building with green shutters and a beige awning that had seen better years. I didn't park right away. Circled the block once, then found a spot across the street where I had a clear view of the front entrance. I waited, hands on the wheel, heart steady. She came out of her car, fixed her hair in the side mirror, then walked in like she'd done it 100 times. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then 30. At 5:20 p.m. sharp, she came out. She wasn't alone. He followed right behind her, tall, maybe 6'1", salt and pepper hair, nice suit. Clean-shaven with one of those smug little half-smiles. The kind of guy who'd never check his own oil or know how to gap a spark plug. Jenna laughed at something he said, and I saw her touch his arm, soft, familiar, like it was second nature. Then, plain as day, he leaned in and kissed her on the cheek. She didn't flinch. She didn't look around. It was like this was just routine. They walked to his car, a black BMW, and she got in on the passenger side like it belonged to her. Like he belonged to her. I didn't make a scene. I didn't slam the door or storm over with fist clenched. That ain't me. Like I said before, I'm a mechanic. I fix what's broken or scrap it when it's too far gone. But I don't make a mess out of it. So I reached into the glove box, pulled out the old Canon digital camera I'd used to take photos of car damage for insurance estimates. Snapped 6 good shots from across the street, her walking out, her smiling, the kiss, the arm touch, her getting into his car, the plates. That was enough. Later that night, when she came home smelling like someone else's cologne and said the filing ran late, I just nodded from the recliner and sipped my iced tea. She didn't even blink. Walked right into the bathroom and turned the shower on. I opened the garage, pulled the documents Ray gave me out of the cabinet, and laid them on the workbench like a map. I'd highlighted everything, her forged transfers, fake names, the timeline, the bank routing trails. Then I compared them to the name I just looked up. That man from the hotel? The one who kissed my wife? His name was Nolan Graves. Junior investor. Had joined the law firm a year and a half ago. On the surface, he looked clean, a few mentions on the firm's website, a couple of guest lectures at a local college. But there it was, his name attached to 6 wire transfers, each routing funds from escrow to fake accounts, all approved through the same signature Jenna had scanned. Everything lined up. So I made copies. 3 full sets, plus 1 digital backup. Labeled the folders carefully plain manila, each one with a sticky note inside saying, "For review. Urgent." One set, I mailed directly to the firm's senior partner, the real boss. Sent it certified, return receipt requested. Another I sent to the local district attorney's office, care of the Financial Crimes Division. Took a little digging, but I found the right desk. And the third? I tucked it into the bottom drawer of my toolbox, right next to the socket set I got from my old man. That drawer doesn't get touched unless something real serious needs fixing. I figured this qualified. I didn't confront Jenna that night, or the night after. I kept playing the role. Cooking breakfast, going to work, coming home to her lies. But I knew the fire was lit now. And fire, once it starts, don't just go out on its own. 3 nights after I mailed those folders out, I came home from work late. Had a carburetor job run long and stayed past sundown to finish. Figured I'd unwind with a cold drink, maybe see if Copper wanted to stretch his legs before bed. But the second I turned down our street, I knew something was off. It was the smell. That thick, biting scent you never forget once you've stood too close to an engine fire. Smoke, but not from leaves or someone grilling steaks. No, this had a chemical bite to it, burnt plastic, scorched metal. I pulled up and saw flashing lights still glowing at the corner. 2 fire trucks. 1 sheriff's cruiser. Yellow tape stretched across the driveway like a warning not to come home. And the garage, my garage, was charred from floor to rafters. Black streaks crawled up the siding like angry fingers. The door hung crooked, half melted and sagging like something old and broken. My chest felt like it caved in. That garage wasn't just where I kept tools, it was mine. My space. My quiet. I left the truck running and jogged toward the nearest fireman. "What happened here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked at his clipboard. "You Bill Carson?" I nodded. "Garage fire. Contained before it spread to the house. Nobody hurt. Your wife said she was inside reading when she smelled smoke." Of course she was. The fire marshal met me a few minutes later. Young guy, maybe late 30s, decent posture, no nonsense. "We're ruling it as arson," he said flatly. Point of origin was the west wall outlet. But the pattern's off. We found evidence the wiring was tampered with. Cut clean. No fray. No age marks. This wasn't faulty wiring. Somebody did it on purpose? He gave a short nod. That's our conclusion. I looked back at the smoking ruin of what used to be my workshop. My toolbox was in there. Not just any toolbox, the bottom drawer held the last full hard copy of everything Ray and I had found. The documents, the timeline, the transfer printouts, the fake names. All gone now. Nothing but ash and twisted steel. Jenna came out the front door wrapped in a robe like she'd just rolled out of bed, even though it was past 9. Her eyes were puffy, like she'd been crying, but not the kind that comes from fear. No, this was the kind people put on for show. She walked over, touched my arm. "Oh, Bill," she said soft and shaky. It was awful. I didn't even look at her. My gaze was fixed on that burnt corner of the garage where the breaker box used to be. I'm no genius, but I've rewired trucks, installed outlets, and done enough home fixes to know what a clean cut looks like. Someone wanted something gone. Someone who knew exactly where it was. But here's the thing. You don't grow up working with junked engines and sketchy customers without learning a little caution. And you sure as hell don't live with a liar for 12 years without picking up some habits of your own. So yeah, my toolbox burned. But I wasn't dumb enough to keep just one copy. Out behind the shop, I had a drawer full of old wrenches I didn't use anymore. Rusty, busted up. Most folks would think they were scrap. But one of those wrenches, an old 3/4-inch hollow socket I drilled out years ago, held a flash drive, sealed in a little plastic bag and stuffed deep inside like a secret. I call it paranoia. Jenna would have called it unnecessary. But it paid off. Next morning, after the insurance guy came and snapped his photos, I went out back, dug through that drawer, and pulled the wrench out like I was just organizing. Took it inside, opened it slow, and slipped the drive into my laptop in the bedroom while Jenna was in the shower. It was all there. Every single file. The bank statements, the forged signatures, Ray's internal log excerpts, and even the photos I took at the hotel. Labeled, time-stamped, tucked into folders with plain names like house repairs and client info. I made new copies that afternoon. Sent another envelope to the DA, this time with a note that said, in case the first set didn't survive. I also drove 2 towns over and left a copy in a safety deposit box under my brother's name. Just in case. You don't survive betrayal without backup plans. That night, Jenna asked if I'd be sleeping in the house or on the couch in the den. I told her I was too tired to move and sat in the recliner with a blanket over my lap and copper curled up at my feet. She didn't press. But I noticed something in her eyes when she turned to head back upstairs. It wasn't guilt. It was worry. She knew she tried to erase the trail, but she wasn't sure if it worked. And that uncertainty? That was going to eat her alive. I filed on a Tuesday. Not just any Tuesday, sunny, cool breeze, one of the mornings where even bad coffee tastes decent. I'd spent the weekend cleaning up the garage, what was left of it anyway, and thinking things through. Sat in my recliner Sunday night, staring at the ceiling fan, thinking about all the miles Jenna and I had walked together. But those miles didn't matter anymore, not when half of them were her walking in a different direction, dragging someone else behind her. So that morning, I shaved close, wore my cleanest flannel, and walked into Frank Redmond's office with my head held straight. Frank's an old friend of my dad's, the kind of lawyer who drives a beat-up pickup and keeps a paperweight shaped like a pig on his desk. I like that about him. Frank didn't believe in fluff, just facts and paperwork, and the occasional slice of sarcasm. "You sure about this, Bill?" he asked, flipping through the folder I'd brought. "Dead sure." "Then let's make it stick." We filed by noon. By 3:45 p.m., Jenna was served, right at her office, in front of her coworkers and that smug front desk gal who always acted like answering the phone was beneath her. The server handed her the envelope with all the calm of a man delivering a pizza, then nodded and walked out like he had 100 more just like it. Jenna's face went pale. Not white, ghost pale. She stood frozen, envelope in hand, the office buzzing quiet behind her. And the best part? She didn't know what else was coming. I'd timed it just right. That same morning, Frank forwarded a digital folder of evidence to the district attorney's office, clean, clear, and tied up with a bow. "Remember that flash drive I hid in the wrench?" Well, turns out that flash drive packed more heat than a .45. By the end of the day, the DA had frozen Jenna's accounts. Every last one of them. The ones she thought I didn't know about. The ones she'd funneled those shady escrow transfers through. She couldn't buy a coffee, much less pay for a fancy lawyer. She tried to call me later that evening. Blocked. I wasn't interested in hearing excuses, not after the fire, the lies, the fraud. Now, you'd think her boyfriend, the junior investor, would stand by her, maybe hold her hand through the mess. Nope. Soon as the subpoena hit his inbox, he ran like a possum from a porch light. Lawyered up, filed a sworn statement, and distanced himself so fast it was like she never existed. That's love for you, huh? But wait, gets better. While digging through records, Frank found something odd. A travel account set up under my name, using my social security number. Turns out all those fancy hotel bookings, flights to conferences, even some designer purchases were routed through this shell travel account tied to my credit profile. I never opened that thing. Never authorized it. Frank leaned back in his chair, hands behind his head. "You know what that is, right?" I nodded. "Identity fraud. Federal identity fraud." We added it to the file. Court came 2 weeks later. Jenna showed up with a new attorney. Young fella, slick haircut, the kind of guy who probably practiced his smirk in the mirror. She was dressed in a light gray suit, hair pulled back like she meant business. But I could see it in her eyes. Panic, just under the surface. Her lawyer stood and claimed I'd been controlling. Said I monitored her finances obsessively and isolated her emotionally. Jenna even choked up, tried to cry, voice all wobbly. But the judge? He wasn't buying it. Frank stood up calm as a Sunday preacher. "Your Honor," he said, "my client has been the victim of both marital betrayal and financial fraud. The respondent opened accounts in his name, used them to fund personal outings with another man, committed forgery, identity theft, and redirected business funds from her employer's escrow system. He pulled out printouts, photos, documents, one by one, like laying down dominoes." The judge leaned forward. "Do you have evidence that supports federal-level charges?" Frank didn't blink. "Yes, sir. And we've already submitted it to the DA." Jenna's face drained again. She looked like she'd melt through the floor. Frank continued. "We also have video stills of the respondent meeting her co-worker outside a hotel during normal work hours. Furthermore, a fire destroyed Mr. Carson's garage days after she was made aware of his investigation. Fire department has ruled it arson, and power tools were tampered with." I just sat there, quiet, hands folded. Didn't need to say a word. The judge leaned back, looked over his glasses. "Divorce granted. Immediate separation of assets. Spousal support denied. Fraud allegations noted." Jenna burst into tears. Loud, messy ones. Her lawyer tried to console her, but even he looked uncomfortable. I walked out of that courtroom free. Not happy, not proud, but free. And as I stepped outside, sunlight hitting my boots, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. It was a humid Friday when I heard the news. I'd just finished replacing the starter on an old Dodge Ram for a fella named Charlie that owns the bait shop out on Highway 16. Washed the grease off my hands, sat down on the tailgate with a tall glass of sweet tea, and let the summer heat settle on my skin. That's when Frank called. "She took the deal," he said. "Pled guilty to embezzlement." For a moment, I didn't say anything. Just stared out across the lot where my dog Copper lay stretched out in the shade, tongue out, tail thumping slow. Somewhere off in the trees, a cicada started up. "Good," I finally said. "About time." Turns out, Jenna didn't want to face trial. Can't blame her. With all that evidence stacked against her, from the bank records to the forged signatures to the subpoenaed hotel receipts, it was either take the deal or roll the dice in front of a jury. And I reckon she knew how that'd go. So she took the plea. 2 years probation, 300 hours of community service, restitution to be paid in full, and a conviction on her record that'd follow her around like a hungry stray dog. Her days working in real estate or law offices. Over. No firm would touch her with a 10-foot pole now. Her fancy bags, her manicures, her lunch dates with folks who said networking more than howdy, gone. She was sentenced in that same courthouse where we got married 12 years back. Funny how life loops around like that. And as part of the plea, she owed me every single dollar she took out in my name. Every flight, every hotel, every lie disguised as a company expense logged into that fake travel account. Frank tallied it up. It came out to just under 28 grand. The court ordered her to start paying in monthly installments. Frank called it poetic. I called it necessary. Now, as for the guy, Nolan Graves, her high-class business partner, he didn't get off so easy. See, the feds got involved when they traced a few of those missing escrow funds into an offshore account. Cayman Islands, to be exact. Real slick. They charged him separately, and from what I heard through Frank's grapevine, he's looking at serious federal charges. Wire fraud, conspiracy, the whole 9 yards. Guess he didn't realize stealing from housing closings isn't just a slap on the wrist when folks are buying homes with their life savings. The cherry on top? His own firm disavowed him the second charges came down. Dropped his name from the website like he was never there. His polished little world, full of lunches at country clubs and shirts that needed dry cleaning, folded like a cheap card table. Meanwhile, I walked out of that courtroom a free man. Divorce finalized. No alimony, no payout, no parting handshake. Judge even ruled I kept full ownership of the house, the truck, and everything inside the garage, what was left of it, anyway. That afternoon, I drove home slow, windows down, music low, some old Skinner tune humming through the speakers. Pulled into the driveway, parked under the same oak tree I used to trim every fall with Jenna's help. Only this time, I wasn't thinking about what was lost. I was thinking about what I still had. Peace. It's a strange feeling, peace. Don't make much noise. Doesn't pat you on the back or throw confetti when it arrives. It just is. Like cool air after a storm. Like the first sip of sweet tea when the sun's got its claws in you. I rebuilt the garage a few months later. Did it myself with help from some friends, Jimmy, Ray, even my neighbor Pete, who doesn't say much unless you mention football. We poured the slab, put up fresh walls, installed new cabinets. Feels cleaner now. Like starting over. I kept the old socket wrench with the flash drive tucked inside. It sits on a shelf, right above the bench, where I can see it every time I reach for a tool. Not because I'm still angry, but because I ain't forgetting. Sometimes life teaches with a slap instead of a whisper, and you best remember the lesson. Copper still runs to the porch every time he hears my truck engine. I grill out more now. Talk with neighbors. Even went fishing for the first time in a while. Peace doesn't just happen. It's something you earn, bit by bit. And me? I earned it. So now, when folks ask me how I'm doing, I just smile, take a sip of tea, and say, better than ever. It was early October when the letter showed up. The air had just started turning, crisp in the mornings, soft in the evenings. That's my favorite time of year, when the cicadas quiet down and the porch light starts drawing more moths than mosquitoes. You can sit outside and breathe easy without sweating through your shirt. The envelope was plain. No stamp. No return address. Just my name in a handwriting I knew better than my own. Curved letters, neat but a little rushed at the ends, like she was always halfway out the door. I found it in the mailbox tucked behind a farm supply catalog, the kind I still get out of habit. I stood there a long while, just staring at it. Thought about tossing it straight into the trash. Thought about burning it in the fire pit out back. But curiosity's a strange thing. It'll make a man pick up a snake just to see if it's really dead. So I opened it. The letter inside was a single sheet. No perfume, no lipstick mark, nothing fancy. Just ink and silence. She'd dated it a few days earlier. Guess she'd driven by when she figured I'd be at work. Probably sat there in her car, motor running, debating whether to drop it in or turn around. Her words were careful, not dramatic. No begging. No, take me back. That almost made it worse. She started with this. Bill, I'm not writing to ask for anything. I just needed to say something that I didn't have the guts to say before. She wrote that she didn't cheat because she fell in love. Said it wasn't about romance or passion or anything you'd find in a paperback novel with two people kissing on the cover. It was about escape. About wanting to feel like she had some secret world nobody else could touch. Something that was hers alone. She wrote, I didn't do it to hurt you. I know I did. But that wasn't the plan. I just got tired of feeling like life was closing in around me. You were steady, solid, kind, maybe too kind. I thought I wanted more. She underlined that word, more. Like it meant something I could never understand. She wrote that the affair, the fraud, the lies, they started small. One little shift at a time. She kept telling herself it was temporary. She'd fix it. She'd come back. But each decision she made built on the last one. Like walking out into the ocean thinking you'll turn back after one more step. She never did. She closed with, I hope you're okay. I hope you find peace. You deserve someone who doesn't run when things get still. That was it. No apology worth its salt. Just reflections from a woman who traded in a steady life for smoke and mirrors. I didn't write her back. What was left to say? That night, I sat on the porch with a glass of cold sweet tea. Same way I always do when the sun dips just below the trees out back. Copper lay at my feet, head resting on my boot like always. I watched the light change on the horizon, soft orange fading into the kind of blue you only see for 10 minutes a day. I thought about that letter. About the way she smiled during those last few months, like she still loved me, like things were just fine. That smile had fooled me longer than I care to admit. But that's the thing about truth. It hides behind pleasantries. It hides behind just tired and just busy. It hides behind goodnight kisses and little white lies. It hides until one day, you wipe the fog off the mirror and see it plain as day. And when you finally do, it don't hurt like a stab. It hurts like a splinter that's been in your skin for weeks, quiet, small, always there. But once it's out, once you pluck it clean, the relief is almost too sweet to explain. I folded the letter once, slipped it into the fire pit with some dried pine needles, and lit a match. Watched it burn down to nothing. Didn't feel like vengeance. Didn't feel like justice. Felt like closure. I leaned back in my chair, took a sip of tea, and listened to the wind rustle through the pecan trees. The kind of wind that don't care what came before. The kind that just keeps blowing, steady as ever. Just like I planned to. Share your thoughts in the comments. Is betrayal worse when it's emotional or financial? If you like the story, subscribe to the channel and give us a like.